One, I'm very glad to be back here with you today. And we are going to talk about hope, a perennial philosophical and psychological concept. Just about every religion or school of thought has explored the subject of hope. So I would say that contemplating hope for me is an annual year end ritual. I probably am not the only one here that experiences quite a bit of anxiety at this transition time. And so for me to actively study hope every December has become a way not only of managing my own fears or my anxieties with what this new year is going to bring, but it actually has also become a way of getting excited about it. I don't know if you know, because I speak so much about eroticism and desire and all these beautiful things, but I'm actually rather prone to catastrophic thinking. And I am very good at just imagining all the bad things that could happen, or the very awareness that things could at any minute go completely awry. So for me, and I think for many people who are prone to this kind of catastrophic perspective, engaging in hope is a way of instantaneously feeling a little bit better. But of course, even when I am hopeful, I can still find myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I can go back and forth, from my hope that things will go well and that the results at the doctor will be good and all the tests will come out clear. And then flip to the other side. But what if the results are all bad? Or hope that I won't be fighting with my family during the holidays, and then flip to the other side. But what if we do fight and this time we can't get through it? Or I hope that the trains will be running smoothly and I'll make it to my next appointment on time, or at least on time enough, because I'm actually chronically late. But then I flip and it becomes, what if I can't even get out of the house and won't be making the train at all, let alone that something would be wrong with the train itself? So, how many of you can relate to me as you're listening here? This kind of crisis and anxiety cycle. And there are so many ways that we can help ourselves through these repetitive thought patterns. But today I want to focus on one primary one, and that is hope. One word, such a loaded, rich, complicated word. And I don't want to be too abstract about it. So I'm going to define hope, at least some definition that we can work with. And I'm going to tell you some ideas that thinkers in the field of hope have shared with me that I think have been very useful, and hopefully to you too. Hopefully. And I will also tell you how to engage with hope yourself. But before we delve deep into the topic of hope, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. This is Letters from Esther Perel Live. This is my monthly workshop series that helps you reflect and act and develop greater confidence and relational intelligence in all your relationships. The series happens monthly on YouTube and on Facebook Live. And if you want more letters from Esther, just visit estherperel.com/blog. And I invite you to join every month here on YouTube with me and on Facebook to discuss the newsletter. So I write, you read, then we come together and we discuss it. So we have an opportunity to engage in a conversation about these things. And you don't have to do this all alone. And before we start, I would like for you to think about who could you reach out at this moment, wherever you are on the globe, that you can invite and say, you need hope. I want to give you hope. Join me in this little workshop. Just reach out to them right now. And as always, take notes, have a notebook dedicated to the workshops, write things down, because everything can be so fleeting at this moment as when it comes to really honing into deeper thought. And especially as you're going about developing greater relational intelligence. If you like what you learned today, just go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like it and subscribe. Then we are connected forever. Okay, let's go back to hope. And consider a little bit what are some of the definitions. So some of the thoughts is probably a better way of saying it that have accompanied the thinkers. I look at Jane Goodall's work, and she basically has this beautiful line: hope is a survival skill that enables us to keep going in the face of adversity. A survival skill that enables us to cope in the face of adversity. One thought. This is not which is true and which is not. These are a multitude of very crisp thoughts about hope. Psychotherapist and grief expert, my colleague Julia Samuel, has a beautiful line where she says, hope is a feeling, but it is also a plan. A feeling and a plan. Maimonides, a prominent Jewish philosopher, has a fantastic line about hope. Hope is the belief in the plausibility of the possible, as opposed to the necessity of the probable. I'm going to read this again. It's the belief in the plausibility of the possible. You're hanging there with one string. You're about to fall. Everything scientific and gravity says you're not going to make it. But you suddenly muster that belief, that strength, that hopefulness that if you pull yourself up one more time, you will actually reach the possible as opposed to the probable. The probable is that you will fall. The possible is that you won't. The probable is that climate change is really on a bad track. The possible is the belief that you can do something about it. So the plausibility of the possible. The Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl always recognized the connection between hope and how it is tied to meaning. And meaning, as I see it, is not only what keeps us going and what gives us a reason to wake up in the morning, but how we can help. That sense of meaning that is intrinsically connected to hope. So, what is hope? I love language, as you know, I speak quite a few of them. And one of the things that I really like is to look at words where the meaning changes. The word is the same, but the meaning kind of evolves in the course of history. So, hope is one of those words. Today, very often when we talk about hope, we emphasize a want or a wish. But the ancient definition of hope was much closer to the word trust. And if you consult the scriptures, you will find that hope is a part of faith, and the aspect of faith that focuses specifically on the future. I find that quite fascinating. So when I go down the road of wishing and wanting, it drives me straight into an anxious place. What if I don't get what I want? What if what I wish for doesn't come true? Which is why I really like this ancient definition of hope as trust and faith. Faith and trust, you know, trust very important for me as a subject in my work, having worked so much on the subject of betrayal and breaches inside relationships. And faith, not so much a concept that I work with, but certainly one that I am personally interested in. So people so often ask me about trust. How do you rebuild trust after betrayal when hope has made a fool out of you? And for these people, typically hope has become very dangerous. Hope is almost synonymous with naivete, with, blindness, with denial, actually. It can feel much safer to maintain a negative outlook, to wrap ourselves into a protective armor so that we are forever prepared. If I anticipate what will go wrong, I'll see it coming. If I see it coming, I won't get hurt. It's a very tight logic. And this is where the work of researcher Rachel Botsman, who works a lot on the topic of trust, comes in. This paradox that she continuously explores. Can we trust without risk? And can we risk without trust? Take a minute. Faith. When it comes to the faith piece of this, I probably should say that the traditional concept of faith is not very big in my life, but I'm nonetheless quite interested in all types of faith. What I have often been more drawn to, including in my own religion in Judaism, is the focus on action and behavior, almost above the idea of faith. And it is summarized in a very beautiful expression called naaseh v'nishma. We will do and then we will feel, or we will do, and from the doing will come the understanding, the experience, the intention, the meaning. The focus is on the behavior and on the doing, rather than I first need to want, I first need to have an intention, and then when I will finally know why I want to do it, then I will go ahead and do it. It's completely the opposite. It's the behavior will shape the experience. And this too is hope, through this notion of action that is connected to faith and trust and intention, that will become quite clear. And as an aside, I just want to share a response that I got to the newsletter. Somebody I do not know. So, Theodora, if you are here, I just want to thank you, because it really made me think. And it was in response to Naaseh V'Nishma, which is written in the recent newsletter. What really got me thinking, she says, is I'm a psychologist working in the realm of digital wellness and healthy technology use. And this saying got me thinking about how we are less and less comfortable and tolerant of this concept. From doing comes understanding, meaning, experience. The increasingly predictive nature of the technologies, she continues, that we make use, that we use, is making it so that very little is left to chance, spontaneity, or the unknown. We don't have to leap into the unknown because the app will decide where we land. Given the heaps and heaps of data on our digital behaviors we're already shared with it, can you blame it? In all seriousness, though, the reality of the situation is that dating apps tell us our perfect match. Amazon will tell us what we need to shop for next. Spotify will tell us the song we want to hear next. And Google Maps will tell us the places we should visit next. You would think that this would perhaps ease the worry of the anxious. This is the clinch here. By removing the question of an uncertain future. And I often see people clutch their devices for that very reason. But this Trojan horse is actually unleashing something far worse than the fear of not knowing. And that is the inability to act freely upon this world and see the ripples of our own actions. How else do we know that we're alive? This kind of deadening doesn't affect this kind of deadening effect doesn't move particularly quickly, but I think that it is already amongst us, and it is what keeps me up at night. And I think that is such an amazing analysis of the newsletter. And clearly, she can relate to another about, how will I say this? Let me put it this way. I can relate to you, Theodora, because I too have nightly ruminations. So when she describes hope and the interaction with the unknown, with the spontaneous, I am thinking about eroticism. Those very experiences that cultivate aliveness. So if any of you want to explore the connection between hope and eroticism more, you just go to my website. We have a whole focus on section about eroticism, and we'll drop the link in the chat right now. All right, so we've had trust, faith. Now let's talk about action. So back to Naaseh V'Nishma for a moment. Through the doing comes the feeling. The feeling doesn't necessarily precede the doing. It's in the behavior that we enact as a response what we will be feeling. And there's a French saying actually that kind of sums it up very simply. It says, l'appétit vient en mangeant. The appetite comes while eating. Sometimes you're not hungry or you don't have much appetite before, but once the taste buds get activated, when you are actually in the doing of eating, then comes the appetite. I promised you that I would move away from the abstract into the actionable. Okay, eating, quite concrete. So in preparation for the workshop today, I reached out to a number of colleagues and people whose books I have read to get some real life examples and concrete steps that you can all take. I also asked our community on social media, what gives you hope? Beautiful question I want to ask to all of you. What gives you hope, and what do you do actively to cultivate hope? So I'm inviting you to start answering in the chat box. But I'm also going to tell you some of the things that people wrote to us. My children, a lot of people said, my children give me hope. Looking at my past and seeing how far I've come, perspective around change, around moving into a more fulfilling life, that there's always something to be grateful for. Being with people who share my value gives me hope. Social connection. The next one is very important. Knowing that nothing lasts forever. When I see genuine acts of kindness among children, especially when nobody's watching them, or they don't know that somebody's watching them. My future dreams, that I had a breath before my last breath. Activists, people who make hard choices, the ability to forgive, human generosity, reincarnation, therapy, focusing only on things that are within my control and taking action as often as possible. Those are some of the answers. Now I want to read some of yours. My creative work, being surprised, Chiara. Finding beauty in simple things, Christy. My dreams, Tanas. Daniel, sunsets. The quiet moments, Marta. Leonie, seeing how difficult it was. You jumped, I lost you. Courage of others, like the woman and the people. Being in nature, seeing, the kindness of others. Yes, Sylvia. Nassini, yeah. Yeah, Annie, tomorrow is a new day and a new beginning. Belief in myself, hell. Being grounded inside my body, yes, yes, yes. Honesty, love of God, Anna, yeah. Achieving important goals, Nassini, yes. Using mindfulness, knowing how everything worked out, yep, yep, yep. Eternal life, yep. Benjamin, dare to dream, yep. Great, great. My lover's embrace, absolutely. Presence, my family, dinner parties, yep. Dana, doing good deeds. Yeah, yeah, very much what I was saying before about the helping, right? And so, if I ask you now, what are the things that you do actively to cultivate hope? You may have mixed the two of them already together, but I'm going to read you a list of answers that we got on social for that, because there's a nuance. What gives you hope and what do you actively do to cultivate hope? It positions you very differently in relation to hope itself. Being grateful for all the things happening in the present, talking to friends. I try to remember things I thought hopeless in the past, but then turned out to be fine in the end. Very good. Looking at all the good things that people I already have. Drinking water. Finding sources of creativity and optimism. One of you said that just now too. Finding solution finders and reducing bad news. To pray and look for small, beautiful things. Knowing that everything changes and change is the only constant. A very powerful Eastern thought. Trying to see the positives in a bad situation, taking small steps, committing to and reflecting on my therapy. So you see, the interesting thing in the things people do, even in the action, it's often a shift in perspective or a calibration of expectation. It's not big steps, it's a small step. It's looking backwards and seeing what is different from what we expected, from how we thought about things and how they have changed. And so it's this very important experience of the mind, of our experience and our thinking around something that is part of this activity. Fight for what I want. Jen, yes, shift in perspective. Claire, connection, remembering the unknowns in my past. Anna. Rebecca, slowing down. Lee, visualize my future. Yes, the ability to project oneself, to anticipate. Tandy, being on purpose. Yeah. Yeah. Jenny, what I do, I deliberately treat others as if they might have wakened in the same position. Ah, beautiful. Yes. Three things I'm grateful for in the evening, Anna. Yep. Danny, your website. Yep. Morton, positive thinking. Michelle, listening to music, watching how others hope. Yep. Letters to myself, Maria. Enjoy. Yep. The now. Yep. 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 Making a wish boards. Yep. Learning something new, Sarah. Beautiful. Okay. Smiling to strangers. Yes. Rather than thinking of them as, as a potential threat all the time. So these are really great. And as I'm going to continue now with some of the suggestions of the other thinkers and experts in the field, start putting your questions. Make them really a question, not a paragraph with a question mark, but start getting your questions ready for the Q&A. Let's go, because so many of these answers are already in line with what I want to highlight of a number of thinkers. So Hefziba Kaplan is a colleague of mine in London who actually focuses on humor. Her book is called Almost Happy. And what she talks about is active hope needs memory of having survived. You see, this is very much what many of you talked about. I look and I see how things are much better than I imagined, or how much they have changed from when they were really dire. It's a can-do attitude with self-belief in one's resources, including one's experiences to overcome adversity, to have survived risks. Of course, be careful not to go totally delusional here. But I really like this. I like all the ones I picked for that matter. My own husband, Jack Soul, who writes about collective trauma and collective resilience, talks about it as tapping into the collective resources, the ancestral heritage, the communal rituals, the religious practices, the shared physical spaces like the neighborhoods, where we look to each other's stories of survival to find diverse coping strategies. So this is hope in the aftermath of trauma, war, displacement, etc. Stress researcher Elisa Apple emphasizes the importance of inner hope with the following recommendations. You wake up and ask yourself, what is meaningful to me today? And the second question, what can I do in some small way that supports and fulfills my deepest values? So it's also a question of integrity, of consolidation that is connected with hope. Hopefulness about life and about humanity is fostered when we feel a strong sense of purpose, our North Star, very close to Viktor Frankl, right? You'll see the overlap is, but when you have so many different thinkers who each basically reinforce pieces of the other, you get a sense that there's not 100 ways to think about hope. It actually is very reassuring that there's a consensus about some of the essential pieces of hopefulness. Elisa also emphasizes, as many other colleagues did, the connection between hope and action, because action absorbs anxiety and it diminishes our sense of helplessness. And for those of you who are hopeless about climate change, consider the model of activist Joanna Macy that has sustained activists actually for decades. One, set your intention to engage in what you want to change. And through connection with others, do the work you most care about. Remind yourself that while you can't control the outcome, this is the important piece here, we can have a meaningful impact to those around us and beyond in our lifetime. So let me see some of the questions that you have. How can we move away from the idea that hope is naive and protecting? Okay, so this is such an important question that I'm going to tell you the next thing I had put down, because it is another idea of Elisa Apple that is directly related to your question, which I know you're not the only one that has that question. No, and this is this. The hope sits as a long view. It is a balanced view. And the balance is one where you cultivate daily joy, social connection, purpose. All the while, you maintain the dialectic of accepting and acknowledging loss, pain, and disappointment of the world in which we are living. And what I like so much about this is that hope sits on top of a keen awareness of the trials and tribulations of life. It's not if you hope, then you forget all the bad things that can happen. Hope knows that shit happens, and despite it, it makes you want to continue fight and stay alive and see the next day and hope potentially, as my mother used to say when she was in the camps, that she will see her family one more time. And for years, she maintained that hopefulness in the middle of very, very dire circumstances. So the hope was a protection, but it wasn't a disappearing of the reality in which she was living. Yes, let's hear the next one. Can hope be toxic? When it's delusional, sometimes, wish. Hope, no, I think that sometimes there is a sense that the people can be in hopeful despite, in lieu of, that it becomes tenacious. But sometimes it's absolutely necessary. So I'm not sure that I know what is the toxicity you're talking about, because there are many different kinds of toxicity and the word is often overused and not well defined. So if you want to precise it, make it more precise for me, then I can give you a more precise answer. I don't know if you mean between people, to the person themselves. Make it a little more specific. Yeah. Next one. Melanie, how can you help cultivate continuous hope in children and youth? With exactly what we just talked about. You ask them to when they wake up, what is it that you want to emphasize today that is important to you? The presence of the sky, the flowers that are growing in the spring, the seasonal changes, you know, who do you want to help today? What is one thing you would like to do that is going to make you feel that you did something nice for someone else? Can be the homeless person on the street, can be a kid in your classroom. Give them specific things, and you tell them, when we do these kinds of things, it makes us feel better about ourselves and about the world. Small little things, giving a bite of something to somebody else. They can choose, but you basically, that's for when they are very young. When they get a little older and it's about, the world we're living in, it's the same thing. You validate the awareness about war, refugees, protests in Iran, climate crisis, mental health crisis. You don't discuss that. And then you say, as we are aware of that, how do we cultivate meaning? How do we do for others? How do we do for the planet in such a way that we feel relevant and not, no matter what I do, it doesn't mean a thing. But the buy-in is really the understanding that it is action that counters helplessness, that it is eroticism, acts that make you feel alive, that become the antidote to deadness, flatness, destruction, meaninglessness, etc. Yeah. Toxic as in detrimental to our own well-being. If it's if it's interestingly, if something is held tenaciously, as in, I can do this because nothing's going to happen to me, that isn't hope. Or this person is going to come back after we have clearly been told 10 times they are not coming back. That isn't hope. That is rigidity. That is stuckness. That is a tenacious idea that tries to defy reality, because the experience of acceptance of reality makes us feel like we're going to crash. So I think that you will find it better to understand when something is not helpful or generative, meaning it creates something rather than it depletes you, is because you're actually still naming it when it already needs to be named something else. It is no longer in the realm of hope. How do you cultivate hope for love when you've only experienced heartbreak? Oh, that is a beautiful question. How do you continue to believe that love will come again with different people in different forms at a moment when you have felt rejected, broken, shattered? For a while, you don't. for a while, that is what heartbreak means, is this sudden realization that you don't have it and you don't believe that it will happen again. When you start to believe it happens again, you're coming out of heartbreak. That is one of the ways you know that you are stepping out, is you begin to notice the people who are looking at you. You're not just looking inward at the person who didn't want you or the various people that may not have wanted you. The next thing is that you have to surround yourself with friends who also love you. It's not just romantic love where people love you, and family who believe in you, who believe in your self-worth, who seek you out, who want your company. So one of the ways that you cultivate that hopefulness in the aftermath of heartbreak is by being surrounded by people who don't see yourself the way that you see yourself, meaning they hold you up, they prop you up with a different view of you. They believe in you in moments when you don't. It's extremely important to not think that this is something one does alone. You need people who value you, your opinion, what you're about, how your presence amongst them. That is what counters the sense of rejection and dejection that you may have felt. And that too slowly brings back the hope about love can happen again. How do you retain hope in a situation where you have no action available? See, that's a great question, Amanda, but I don't know the specifics here, right? So the sense is there's nothing I can do, right? There's nothing I can do. I don't know if we will ever be reunited because my partner, my boyfriend can't come back into the country, or I can't go visit them, or, what is it that is preventing me from taking action? And as you know, everything that was said was about taking actions about the things that you can control. If you're trying to do things that are beyond your means, your capacity, your possibility, then you're not in the realm of hope. See, the all the things that people do, to fight adversity, to experience survival, all these actions are clearly measured. It's the small things I can do. So if I can't go visit you, maybe I can write a letter to you, maybe I can talk to you on a screen, maybe there's other ways that I can stay connected. I'm just completely inventing an example here, but I can't go see my ailing parent. No, may not be able to see them again in person the last time, but I can send me singing to them, a little recording, a message, something that connects us. So action of the actionable, meaning the things that you actually can do in small steps and that maintain the hope, but not the hope is not always tied to the big thing, i.e., the outcome, right? That's the same thing we said around climate too. I won't change the climate crisis by doing things, but I can do little things in between, and other people will bend on that, and all of this may lead to an outcome. But my action personally is not directly connected to the outcome. The same thing is true in the small and personal realm. How can we stay hopeful when facing unknown or incurable illnesses? If the illness is incurable, you say yourself, how a person wants to die tells a lot about how they want to live. And so you don't remain hopeful that they suddenly will be cured. You remain hopeful that they will have a quality of life till the end, that they will be surrounded by loved ones till the end, that they will remain with a sense of dignity till the end. And that hopefully you'll get a few more days than you had been told by the scientists. It's that. Hope isn't going to create cure, but hope will surround the person who is ill with all the love and the respect and the rituals that make the incurable illness more tolerable. And if you want to know more about that specifically, go to the website of End Well, which is a whole organization that deals with end of life, and hope is a very big part of the conversation too. Yes, how can we have hope if you know that the only way you'll be happy and free will cause sadness to your family, Shabi? That is a very important question. because it's a question about differentiation, right? Is how much do I have the right to do something that I feel is right for me and makes me happy if it's going to disappoint, or even more than disappoint, those, my family in particular. It can be, how can I make the choice to go study something else, to go live in another country, to marry a different person or live with a different person, or to leave a person that my family had chosen for me, etc. So this notion of living with certainty that what I'm doing is what I'm going to stand by, and accepting that it will come with guilt over hurting people that I care about deeply. And in this instance, it's the ability to hold the inherent contradiction. What is good for me is not for the people around me. And I'm going to have to live with having done something that was good for me and disappointing to others. Or I'm going to decide to not do what is good for me because not disappointing them is more important to me. That is a possibility too. And I will accept that that was the choice. Now, that is not often a Western choice. That is a choice that exists in many other parts of the world, where you don't do what's right for you if it doesn't fit the people that surround you. Your individual happiness doesn't exist on its own. So it's not just how can I have hope, it's how do I negotiate between these two different values, the value of doing something for me and the value of being loyal to my family. That is what you are negotiating here. And how do you maintain that? There is when I hear the question about how do I hold hope here, it's about how do I keep hope about this, that there will be an answer, that I will find some answer I can live with. The other thing is, find someone in your family who can be an interlocutor for you. Who in your family can be a link between in this dilemma between what you want and what the family wants for you? There's often an ally in the family system. Could be an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister that moved away already. Find an ally. It's a very important thing systemically and strategically. Yes. How can you bring hope to others? I would finish the question, right? How do you bring hope to others who don't have it, who don't want it, who reject it, who don't believe in it, who thwart you, etc.? I mean, I suppose it's a, um, you know, I remember, it's interesting that you ask me this question. I'm going to tell you about a moment that always stayed with me. I was a young therapist, and I had a patient who was suicidal and was addicted and couldn't care less about destroying his whole life. Or it's not that he didn't care, it's that he just was totally disconnected from it. And I knew he found no reason for himself to live. So I asked him to bring a number of his closest friends to a session with him. And we were him and 4 of his closest friends, where each of them talked about why they needed him to stay alive, why he mattered to them so much, what it would do to them if he would decide to take his life. And this was a person who had no hope for himself, but other people gave him a reason not to be hopeful, but to stay alive because it nourished their hope. So this kind of transaction is extremely important. You tell other people that they matter to you, that when you see them not well, it actually affects you deeply. You say, let's go for a walk. You hold them by the hand. You tell them not to, what do you want? Because sometimes when people are hopeless, they have no idea what they want. You say, let's go take a drive, go to a movie, go to a concert, listen to music, smell the flowers. You basically bring them into their senses, and then from their senses into their feelings, and maybe after that into their thoughts. But you don't have a conversation about hope. You just do little gestures that are soothing, that are calming, that allow me to look up and to see that there's a sky above my head and that it changed colors, rather than be so completely retracted inside myself. It's those little things that gestures of hope rather than conversations about hope. All right. There's so many of you. Everyone for it. Yes, 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 yes. There's so many of you. I won't be able to answer many, many more. But remember, hope sits on top of the keen awareness and the trials and tribulations of life. It doesn't replace it. You know, I spent many, many years asking my parents who were in prolonged lockdown, what gave you hope? What gave you hope? And it was this notion that it will be better. I will see you again. My family, I will see you again. My mother kept repeating. My dad, what gave me hope is that I could help those who were weaker than me. And I felt stronger and I felt like I still had something to give. So these two axes that we have come back the whole time today remain very, very central. So I want to thank you all for joining me. It's always a treat to meet you here on YouTube. I hope you'll join me next month for Letters from Esther Live. Follow along, sign up to my newsletter if you haven't already at estherperel.com/blog, and follow me at Esther Perel Official on social media. Thanks to all. Give me your comments. Stay in touch. See you soon.